The desert nights in Tonopah, Nevada were always silent, eerily so. That kind of silence that settled in your bones, where even the wind seemed hesitant to disturb the stillness. Ethan Cole, a radio DJ in his mid-40s with a worn voice and a face molded by sleepless nights, had grown used to it. He hosted the midnight slot at KTXA 590 AM, a local station no one really listened to unless they were lost, drunk, or too afraid to sleep. It was just past 1:13 AM when Ethan leaned back in his chair, a cigarette burning slowly between his fingers. The studio was dim, lit only by the blinking red on-air light and the faint blue glow of the soundboard. It was supposed to be another dead hour, just classic rock on auto loop and Ethan muttering half-hearted commentary every 20 minutes. But then the static started. It was subtle at first, a soft, intermittent crackle bleeding into the broadcast. Ethan frowned, adjusting the frequency dials. Nothing was out of place. Then, from the headphones, a voice. It wasn't part of the track, it wasn't a caller. And it sure as hell wasn't anyone from the station. The voice was low, distorted by static, but unmistakably human. Ethan Cole. Are you listening? He froze. It wasn't the name that chilled him. It was the way it was said, like someone whispering directly into his ear. Calm, precise, intimate. Ethan, 1997. You left her at the hospital. She waited. The cigarette dropped from his fingers. Smoke curled into the dark ceiling. He scrambled to isolate the signal, fingers trembling. Over the console. He shifted the tuner into the 40 MHz range, way outside public broadcast frequencies. Military band, no reason for anything to be transmitting there. Nothing should have been able to. The voice returned, now more urgent. You opened the door. They see you now. Then silence. Ethan yanked off his headphones. The air in the studio felt heavier somehow, charged with something he couldn't name. He looked through the glass window into the hallway. Empty. But he couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching him. He checked the recording system. Nothing had saved. The log was blank. He went home around 5 AM, trying to convince himself it was a prank. A glitch. A late-night hallucination. But when he got to his small desert house just outside town, the porch light was on. He never left it on. Inside, a single chair at his kitchen table had been pulled out, just slightly. He lived alone. Ethan didn't sleep that day. Ethan didn't go back to the station that night. He called in sick, something he hadn't done in years. The memory of the voice lingered like smoke in his lungs. He tried to write it off as stress, sleep deprivation, or some weird radio interference. But nothing stuck, especially not after what he found in the morning, taped to his front door, fluttering slightly in the hot desert wind, was a Polaroid photo. It showed him sleeping in bed. The timestamp in the corner read 3:16 AM, the time when, as far as he remembered, he had been lying awake staring at the ceiling, his stomach turned. There were no footprints around the porch, no tire tracks in the dirt road leading up to the house, just that one photo. Ethan searched every corner of his property with a flashlight, heart pounding. Nothing, not even his dog, Bella, a mutt who barked at every jackrabbit in a mile radius, had made a sound the night before. Something was wrong, deeply, unnaturally wrong. By late afternoon, he decided to return to the station, not to work, but to listen. He had to hear that transmission again, had to convince himself that he wasn't losing his mind. At the station, the building was dark. His co-worker Marla had left early. The place felt hollow, like walking into a crypt. Ethan locked himself in the studio and tuned the dial directly to where he'd found the voice. 4220, Mies, static again. Nothing else. For hours, he sat, eyes bloodshot, headphones on, recording everything. Then, just past midnight, it came back. The same frequency, the same voice, but this time it wasn't whispering. Do not trust the gaps in your memory. Ethan's heart stopped cold. They've used you before. You let them in once. Do you remember Langley? Langley, Virginia. It hit him like a slap, a detail buried so deep in his past that he hadn't thought of it in over a decade. A psychological test he'd agreed to when he was younger. He barely remembered the building, just a grey hallway and a door marked Room 119. He staggered back in his chair. The transmission continued. They've built the signal into your bones, Ethan. The closer you listen, the closer it gets. The static spiked. Feedback screamed through his headset. He tore them off, panting, sweat pouring down his face. Then silence, just the hum of the studio. But in the glass window facing the hallway, a shadow stood still, not moving, not breathing. Watching, he blinked, and it was gone. Ethan knew one thing now. This wasn't a prank, and it wasn't just a voice. Something had remembered him. And now, it wanted him to remember it too. After that night, Ethan didn't sleep. Every electronic device in his house began to behave strangely. His microwave would beep in patterns at odd hours. His TV would turn on by itself, always to static. His old landline rang once at 4:13 a.m., with no one on the other end, just the sound of breathing, and always the feeling of being watched. The next evening, he returned to the station, this time bringing with him a handheld recorder, signal analyzers, and an old radio scanner from his days in college. He was going to trace that frequency, figure out where it was coming from. But when he tried to tune in to 4220 MHz again, the signal was gone. Dead air. Instead, another frequency began to bleed through, an encrypted military band, usually silent, and then a voice. You were warned not to return. It wasn't the same voice as before. This one was cold, clinical, almost automated. Subject 29 has breached containment. Reacquisition protocols initiated. Ethan's hands trembled as he recorded every word. What did Subject 29 mean? Was it him? Was it someone else? He scrambled through his notes and audio logs from the night before, looking for patterns, clues, anything. That's when he noticed something chilling. The signal was embedded into his previous recording. Faintly, behind the whispers and static, was a coded pulse, a signal he recognized from a shortwave intelligence leak he'd heard about years ago. It was called the Lincoln Protocol, a supposedly abandoned government test for psychological warfare using subliminal audio. No one was ever supposed to hear it, but someone was transmitting it again, and Ethan had been listening for too long. That night, his nose started bleeding. A steady, slow drip. When he went to the bathroom to clean up, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror and froze. His eyes were bleeding too. By the time he drove home, his car radio lit up on its own. All the channels were gone. There was only one signal, 42. 20 Immerse, and the voice, calmer now, more familiar, whispered again, "You've let the door open, and now they're coming through." In his rearview mirror, headlights appeared, but they weren't from any car he could recognize. The headlights didn't blink. They followed Ethan all the way home, never getting closer, never falling behind. Just there, watching. He tried to shake them. He turned onto side streets, cut through alleys, even drove the wrong way on a one-way road. But every time he glanced in the mirror, the same two headlights hovered behind him, like eyes in the dark. No license plate, no sound. Just a hum. When he finally pulled into his driveway, the black car didn't stop. It simply vanished. Like a switch had been flipped. Ethan stumbled into his house, locked every door, pulled every curtain. His heart was hammering in his chest. He didn't know who to call, didn't even know what to say. Instead, he went back to the audio logs, and that's when he saw it. His last recording, taken inside the radio station, had a hidden track. Something that hadn't been there before. It wasn't music, not exactly. It was a looped whisper, slowed down, almost inhuman. "Help me, help me, help me." But layered beneath that voice was another one that knew his name. Ethan. You hear me now? Good. He yanked his headphones off. Every time he listened, something inside him twisted. It was like the audio itself was corrupting something inside his brain. And then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps on the front door. Ethan stood frozen in the hallway, barely breathing. Another knock. "Mr. Walsh," a voice called out. "We'd like to talk about what you've been listening to." It wasn't a neighbor. It wasn't a cop. Through the peephole, he saw them. 2 men in black suits, emotionless faces, no badges, and dark glasses even at night. "You're not supposed to hear the frequency," one of them said. Ethan didn't open the door. He ran out the back, but as he looked out into the alley, there it was again, the black car, engine humming. Lights on, driver's seat empty, waiting. Ethan didn't remember running. He only remembered the cold wind, the endless sound of his own footsteps, and the feeling that someone was just behind him, breathing in rhythm with his panic. He didn't go home. Couldn't. Instead, he drove out of the city toward the desert, toward the broadcast tower. Something had pulled him there, or maybe everything had. The static on his radio wasn't static anymore. It was breathing. It was speaking. And between the garbled pulses and distortions, he could hear himself, recordings of his own voice, things he'd never said aloud, private thoughts, memories he didn't even know were his. The tower stood in the middle of nowhere, tall, skeletal, humming with unnatural energy. Its red light blinked like a heartbeat, faster and faster as Ethan approached. He expected resistance, maybe another black car, maybe those men in suits again, but there was nothing, just silence and a faint buzz in the air. Inside the control shed, old equipment sparked to life as he entered. Switches flipped, lights blinked on. The air turned heavy, almost electric, and then the screen turned on. A live feed. A camera pointed at him. But the timestamp was wrong. It said, DERS 2/12/1968, Langley, VA. Subject, row 1, number 9. That room. Room 119. The feed flickered, and behind him, on the screen, a shadow moved, slow, crawling along the wall. Ethan turned, heart pounding, but there was nothing. The frequency surged. His earpiece cracked with a voice, not his own, not human. Transmission complete. Channel open. Outside, the sky shifted. Stars blinked off like dying light bulbs. The desert around him fell into an unnatural quiet. No wind, no insects, no life. And in the distance, a figure stepped forward. Not a man, not an animal, something. In between, wrapped in shadow, dripping with static. It knew him, it had always known him. As Ethan screamed, the final broadcast hit the airwaves. One last cry for help, but no one heard it, because no one else had ever tuned in.